It's it's so good that we have that liquidity, safety, and return on our foreign currency reserves. Wouldn't want to upset the world if we were to get rid of them, considering how much there is there. $21.3 billion. Now, the FOMC also continued to supply U.S. dollars to foreign central banks through U.S. dollar liquidity swaps. How many foreign central banks are there? I mean, I've actually looked at it. It seems like every nation of the world has one of these central banks of the individual nations, and we keep doing liquidity swaps with them. Could you find out the amount of liquidity swaps that we have with these central banks throughout the world, and all of those that as central banks? Yes, we call them up. We say it is a foreign currency reserve. Yes, we'd like you to have one of these liquidity swaps where, well, let's say we only have $21.3 billion, and of course we wouldn't get rid of that. But a lot of these central banks in other nations, do they have much more than 21.3 billion at each of them? Now let's say there was 170 of them, or maybe more like 100 of them. Yes. And they each have 100 times 21.3 billion. Exactly what would that, if I added a zero, that would be 213 billion? Yeah. Added another zero? Yes. That would be $2,130,000,000,000 of liquidity swaps of the United States of America. Now, folks, the desk did not conduct any foreign exchange intervention, but did we intervene in any central banks throughout any nation of the world? Yes. Well, reflecting the limited demand given muted dollar funding pressures, the total volume of liquidity swap transactions declined roughly 18% over the year. Now, when I look at the year-over-year increase and decrease of these liquidity swaps, 18% seems like it's a little large, really, when you think about it. Unless, let's say it's $100 billion in foreign central banks. It went from 100 billion down to $82 billion in foreign. See, this really doesn't say anything because it sounds super good. Like, good for you guys at the desk. But when I know there's central banks in approximately 100 nations,